Alright guys, TacticalRab again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Dashy finally getting his hands properly on the sniper rifle in Black Ops 7 last night, raising serious questions based on this gameplay as to whether it's going to be allowed and competitive the upcoming year. Based on some of these clips, some of the pros may well disagree, but how many more pros might we have in the CDL this season? Big roster developments going on last night, especially Mr. If the Bag is Right Shifty, former Warzone champion, finally making the move to Black Ops 7 competitive. Some other big names in the mix as well. What does that mean, if anything, for the state of competitive this season? Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate. Yes, I got a new pair of glasses. Thanks for all the compliments. Well, they're a bit shiny, I will say that. Let's dive straight into things. This was Kismet, of course, now with the Falcons, playing a little 1 versus 4 last night. When he gets the first couple of kills, finds himself in a 1 versus 1. The dog-pound population he's going for, which is pretty funny. Of course, the Bulldog, he's now on the Falcons. Are they going to be any good? It is a very good question for the upcoming season. I don't know. Let's just say there is some debate on whether that Falcons team is going to be competitive or not. But let's talk about this Warzone-related Rostermania drama, because Jake Hale was actually talking about some of the Warzone teams. We know the World Series of Warzone recently happens. Aiden and team, they won the World Cup back in Riyadh for Warzone earlier on there. Of course, it was OpTic that won and the Call of Duty multiplayer side, or whatever you want to call it. Black Ops 6, I don't know. And then Warzone was won by Aiden and the guys, and then recently FIFA Kill, they took down, and team, they took down the World Series of Warzone. But Warzone competitive, is it where it once was? You know, has it ever been that good? You know, there's some questions on this, to be fair. And Jake Hell says that there are teams trying to be formed in the Warzone side, but maybe some of those players might look to make the transition. And this isn't even a maybe, this is now a fact. So Shifty TV, Falcons Shifty, of course, this team of Shifty, Biffle and Hisoka, they won everything in Warzone for a very long time. Not so much recently, but for the last couple of years, they were the dominant force. Falcons picked them up. They won the World Cup last year. Biffle, though, recently said that he was going to retire. He was going to call it a day, no longer play competitive Warzone. There were questions whether he could come to the CDL. We think even Biffle had maybe an offer from a CDL team at some point over the last few years, but that was probably not a very good offer. And to be fair, even if Biffle did want to, and he probably could maybe make the transition to the CDL, there's certainly been talk about of any of the Warzone guys, he might have the best chance of doing so. Probably makes more sense for him, whack the stream on, make a load of money, rather than play for the minimum on, you know, whatever team you might want to say. I'm naming no names today yet. Now, Shifty, though, different perspective. You guys remember when that clip came around and Shifty was like, well, I don't know if it was a clip exactly, but he said something to the effect of, if the bag is right, then I would come to the league. And people were roasting him, Dashy especially, because it was like, damn, who's this guy think he is, right? Like, if you're coming to the league, you're not going to get paid 6, 7 figures, because 7 figures is probably a bit of a stretch, but you're not going to pay some crazy money to go and play for a top team. You're a Warzone kid if you want to come to the CDL, and if you do get an offer even, you're going to be at the bottom rung. You're not going to get the right bag, as it were. But fair play to Shifty, he wants to give it a go, and he wants to prove that he can make the transition and be competitive, and I think it's a great story. And he says that himself and Blast need 2 for Black Ops 7 challenges. So Blast, I mean, like, he has been around for a long time. He's considered one of the better Warzone players, but also he was a pro, right? He was around in certainly the World War II days, around, I mean, even in the CDL, Blast played, I think the first year he was on the Los Angeles Guerrillas, and he was around for a few years. He was pretty competitive. I mean, online, Blast, whatever you want to call him, was considered one of the best players going, but the transition to LAN for Blast was always the question mark. You know, Blast and Decimate back in the day were kind of put into a similar box in that sense. But he's done some good things in Warzone, and Blast still has some ties to competitive players in the competitive scene. So if they need teammates, Blast can probably hit some certain people up, and then maybe something will happen. So Shifty says, me and Blast need 2 for Black Ops 7 challenges and funding. So, you know, if the bag is right, like if the bag is right for the funding side, then they'll make it work. Of course, we have no idea when the first challenges event even is, but this is a great story, right? Shifty admitting, presumably, that look, he's not going to get a spot straight into the league, understandably so, but he wants to give it a go. Repul says, just stop, right? Like, there's no point. But Blaz goes, like, it's a Cinderella story. This documentary is going to go crazy when we win. So I think it's a combination of several factors, but Black Ops 7 feeling like a more fun, competitive game. Certainly I would say, look, Black Ops 7 might not be everyone's cup of tea, and fair enough, but is it probably going to be a better experience to play and to watch than we've had for the last few years? The answer to that is probably yes, and as a result, it's understandable that many people are looking to make the transition to BO7 competitive. I will say, if there was ever a time for expansion, now would be a pretty ideal time, because there are so many new names flooding in, but unfortunately there's still only 12 teams, and it's still 4v4. I want it to be 4v4, but you know, challenges is going to be flooded. I think that's the key point here. Not just with the players that didn't make it into the Pro League last season, the top challengers guys that have been running things for several years, but also other players, Shifty and Blaz, making the transition from Warzone. We'll see how they get on, who they get to team with. That's a good question. Could they look to pick up one of the Halo guys? We know that there's plenty of interested parties transitioning from the Halo side. I just found out this pretty funny tweet when Dashy, they were reacting to Shifty, when all the drama was happening, right, a couple of years ago between CDL pros and Warzone pros. It still exists to some extent today, but Shifty's like, well, at least I won my champs, and since this moment, of course, Dashy's now won back-to-back champs, which is pretty funny. But anyway, plenty of Halo players also looking to make the switch as well. We know that Legend, well, we think he actually might be making the switch straight to the Pro League with the Surge, but there's also Renegade, there's Bound, there's some of the Cloud9 Halo guys, plenty of other Halo players looking to make the transition too. Some of the Warzone guys coming in. Look, is it going to work out for Shifty? We'll see, but you know, I'll respect any player betting on themselves and trying to make it work, especially because initially the context around Shifty was that he would probably only take an offer if he was getting an offer straight to the Pro League. But now he's saying, you know what, yeah, I'll grind out in challenges, I'll play with Blastful, I'll put together a team, and we'll see how it goes. The other big roster change was this one. So Beans last night confirms that he's signed a contract, well, seemingly somewhere or another, and the deal is done. So where is this? Rumour has it it's going to be Cloud9. Now what Cloud9 are cooking is an interesting question. We did discuss it a bit on the Dope Check show that we ran last night, talking that New York Subliners used to be such a competitive organisation, right? Basically every year of the league they were competitive. MW19 they won their own home series, yes it was online, that they were competitive, they paid big money for big name players that year. The year after they brought in HyDra, they made a finals that year despite FaZe's dominance for the majority of the season. Next year in Vanguard, I mean we all know what happened that year, the amazing story that New York had, winning the Pro-Am, coming second to their own home event. They ran an event that year, let's not forget as well, some amazing content around Kremp and many others. The following year, Modern Warfare 2, they won the damn World Championship, right, and they made the finals the year after. So New York have been a competitive force every year of the league until really Cloud9 took over, and last year was a shambles, and then this year I actually like what they're doing here, but it's just, you know, New York has been such a staple of the top four really for the last several years. Not probably the case this time around, but the rumour has it that Beans is signing a contract. Now, I think it's good to see Beans back in the league. I think there is more to come from Beans than we have seen so far of his career, let's say. He had a good opportunity last year on Toronto, and for various reasons it didn't quite work out. I guess if you asked the community, who do you think was a better player last year, Beans or Insight? I think the community would be pretty split. They'd probably say Beans. That was certainly the talking point when they dropped Beans, was that, damn, well, it felt like Beans was a bit better. I just don't think that was a great combination of ARs. I also think that, you know, Beans, he plays fast, he drops a lot of damage, right? His decision-making last year wasn't always the best. I think that CleanX, it's understandable that he thinks, all right, I'll go to the flex, Insight will be the main. But I definitely think Beans is easily a Pro League caliber level player. You're not going to find players in challenges to replace a guy like Beans who have more talent. And also, you know, he's a character, right? Which I like to see in the Pro League as well. So I'm happy that I think Beans, like, for sure should be on a team. Of course, he's moved down the order, presumably to go to Cloud9. They're probably not paying much money, at least if Zinni has anything to say about it. We think that Afro might sign as well, although presumably, maybe with Beans, there was some sort of visa situation already determined. But then again, he was based out of Toronto, right? And as we know, the visa situation for him wasn't ideal because of all the drama with Mercules that happened at Major 3. So there was clearly something going on there. I do think that the whole Mercules thing did affect Beans as well because, you know, let's be honest, ever since Mercules came in, replaced him, did a killer job, then Mercules went to OpTic and started beating Toronto. You know, I think that probably did get in Beans' head to some degree, and I can't blame him because, you know, Mercules just, you know, came out of nowhere and started running the league, right? So I do get that. Presumably they're going to have to get aBeZy sorted for beans, and if they're going to do that, then probably it makes sense to do it for Afro as well. aBeZy, the other player that of course played for Toronto at the World Cup at the end of the season, did a pretty good job. Loads of theories as to who the fourth on that team might potentially be. So that's the roster stuff for the day, and tweet your thoughts in the comments. The other thing though is on the snipers and also the movement that we currently have in BO7. You know, I've been showing you guys some nice clips over the last few days, so I thought I'd just share one of Fatty here to bring everyone back down to earth. There's also this clip of Neptune though. We've not seen too much Neptune gameplay so far. We expect Neptune to probably be pretty good at this game. Like, he is using the Drazah, which is a bit of a cheat code gun, but like, the POV is pretty nice, right? The POV is pretty nice. It should be no real surprise, I think, that some of the HaLo players, theoretically the likes of, you know, Neptune, maybe Huke, and then of course considered to be the better movement players in Shotzzy and then HyDra, should be having a pretty good time. Now, not to say the movement is the be-all and the end-all, but you know, look what he's doing here. And I've not seen, again, every day I see a clip and I'm like, I've not really seen anyone quite do that quite yet. So most of this clip is pretty standard. It's stuff that we've likely seen before. You know, at the start of the video here, we've got the kind of jump up into the window, and then what he hits after he gets the third kill, when he hits the little bounce around the corner and gets the fourth. Okay, that's pretty nice. We've seen that before. It was this moment here that I thought was very interesting, right? He's sliding, I mean, look at this. This must look outrageous in this guy's POV. I'm just going to put this in slow motion for you all, because it is pretty insane. So he gets, well, he doesn't get this kill. He then backs out of there. He runs backwards, slides backwards, and then jumps on the wall while going backwards, and then hops himself back forwards. And this guy, I mean, he must be mind blown with whatever's happened on his screen there. And then he does it again. So, you know, it's a little, as I say, the wall bouncing, the way that it allows you to actually change your direction of travel in a way that doesn't seem, you know, consistent with reality is interesting, and I think it's going to be spectacular to watch, that is for sure, although probably kind of controversial. Even Kismet was discovering a similar kind of thing, playing around with the wall bouncing here on Blackheart. Don't know if this map's really going to be played in competitive, but, you know, this third guy does get absolutely slammed. He wasn't ready for that one. But I did want to share this clip here from Dashy. He pulls out the sniper rifle and, well, hits some pretty disgusting shots. Is it going to be allowed in competitive? It's always a big question.
I got my my thing right here. You got my rats, bro. That's my rats.
What is that I'm seeing? Is that one?
I think my rats, they're like blind or something. They just like slow, you know? Like a car, bro. They just started, bro. Damn.
Losing Alpha. Losing B.
So for the last few years, since pretty much Cold War, not always, but for the majority of the last few years, the sniper rifle has been banned by the pros. Couple of reasons for this. Often they talk about the smoke grenades. Now, the smoke grenades in COD, are they really that bad? Not necessarily. The key point is that the smokes generally nowadays don't give you aim assist, right? Which means that if you throw a smoke at your feet, you can just run around and pretty much just make it a mix fest. And we've seen players use that over the last few years to such a degree that the pros tended to GA the smokes, and therefore the logic goes, well, if the smokes aren't there, then it's impossible to do anything in search and destroy without a smoke grenade to counter the snipers, so the snipers got to go as well. Now, I don't really believe in that logic. The other logic is that the sniper, if it has aim assist, is just too good. I think I did prefer the games, you know, BO3, for example, that the sniper didn't have aim assist when you aimed down the sight. I think that was actually a better way to do it. It meant that it took more skill, but also there wasn't really an excuse in the pros to get rid of it, because it was just, you know, it wasn't a guarantee that if you were hitting across, you would just hit the shot. Now, in my opinion, even if snipers are allowed, how many are you getting on the map? You're getting 8 snipers? No, right? You're getting maximum, really, like 2. And if this guy on my team is using a sniper rifle, the counter to that is my boy pulls out a sniper himself, or I'll pull out myself and I'll gun him back, right? That's the way that it goes. So I don't really buy the logic that the pros have on why they get rid of sniper rifles. Does it look pretty powerful in this game so far? I mean, yeah, Dashy's hitting some nice shots, but it is Dashy. Hex was hitting some nice shots in the beta as well, but it is Hex, you know, one of the greatest snipers in the history of OpTic. So, you know, I understand both angles of this. Intrigue your thoughts in the comments below. I think the fans will definitely want to see snipers fully back in play. But whether that's what's going to happen this year is a good question. And what Dashy's opinion is would also be interesting to see, but generally players like Dashy, people who are good with the snipers, they want it in, and the teams that maybe don't have quite as good of a player with the sniper rifle, they are not so convinced that it is really a good idea. So very much intrigued to your thoughts, as always, on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Nice little no-look nade here from Shotzzy. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.